everybody, this is Elia from Teen Services, and today we're going to be doing a really fun experiment involving strawberries and DNA. So what exactly is DNA and why do we care that this is a really cool experiment? Well, DNA actually stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, and it is the stuff inside your cells that contains the full recipe of what makes you you. DNA can be found in every living thing on the planet. So you're not going to be able to find it in things like rocks and dirt, but it is in all animals, including people, and in all plants. And the more complex the thing is, the more complex the DNA recipe becomes. So even though technically DNA is microscopic and you do need a very strong microscope to see each individual link, today's experiment is going to allow us to see a full DNA chain with our naked eye and no need for a microscope. So it is pretty cool, and it's probably something you've never seen before. This experiment does call for quite a few materials, but they're very simple to get materials, and most people will have these laying around their home. To start with, you're going to need some water, and this water should be room temperature, not too cold and not too hot. And you're going to need to grab some dish soap. For this experiment, you will need it to be dish soap. Body wash or hand soap is not going to work as well, so make sure you grab that from your kitchen. You also want to get some salt, and make sure this is regular table salt and not coarse or kosher salt. It doesn't have to be iodized salt, but it does have to be regular table salt. And you're also going to need to get some rubbing alcohol that is at least 70% or higher. In addition, you'll want a strawberry or two, since that's what we're going to be extracting the DNA from. You'll want a Ziploc bag or any other kind of sealable bag. A regular plastic garbage bag or anything like a grocery bag isn't going to work because you want it to make a seal and be airtight so that you don't make a huge mess everywhere. And you'll see what I mean in a minute. You'll also want a paper towel and a glass jar. You don't need to have a lid on the jar, and if you don't have a jar available, then you can use a glass that you drink out of or a cup. This will work the best if the item that you get is clear though, so try not to get like a mug that you can't see out of. Finally, you're going to want a wooden skewer or a toothpick. You're going to want rubber bands that are big enough to fit over the top of your jar or cup that you're using, and some measuring spoons and measuring cups. The final thing to think about before you begin is that for this experiment, your rubbing alcohol needs to be cold. So make sure you put it in the freezer for at least 30 minutes before you start the rest of your experiment. Alcohol does not freeze like water does, so it's not going to be frozen when you take it out of the freezer. It's just going to be cold, and that does need to be cold alcohol in order to work for this experiment. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your plastic bag and your strawberry, take the top off the strawberry so you only have the red strawberry part, not the little green part. Open up your bag, throw your strawberry inside it, and then seal the bag very carefully so that you're sure that it is very well closed. Then you squish the strawberry and just keep squishing and squishing and squishing until the strawberry is all pulp. Then you're going to grab yourself some water and set that aside, and grab your measuring spoons. Take 1 teaspoon of water, put it in your jar. Take another teaspoon of water, put that in your jar. So you want 2 teaspoons of water in your jar or your cup. Then take a 1/4 teaspoon and measure out a 1/4 teaspoon of the dish soap. Very carefully, not to spill soap everywhere, and put that in the jar with the water. After that, you're going to grab your salt, and you don't really need to measure this. It just needs to be a little bit of salt. So just grab your salt or your salt shaker and put a little bit of that, just a little bit, into the jar with the soap and the water. Then take a spoon and mix that all together. I'm just going to use one of my measuring spoons until you have a mixed up soapy, salty bit of water. Your next step is going to be to grab your squished up strawberry that should still be in your bag and pour the liquid from the jar into the bag with the strawberry goo. Seal it up tight again, make sure that it's sealed nice and tight, and then mix the liquid from the jar up with the squished strawberry. You mix it up and keep squishing it until it's all mixed up there together. You'll see that the soap will foam a little bit, And once you're satisfied, you can leave it. Next, you're going to take your now empty jar and you're going to grab yourself a paper towel. Make sure it's a fairly sturdy but not too thick paper towel, and then lay it over the top of the jar, making sort of a little dip or a pocket. And then take your rubber band, put it over the jar so it holds down the paper towel. And once again, push it down so it makes a little pocket. And then you're going to take the stuff in the bag, the strawberry goo with the soap, and pour it into the little dip inside of the jar. Make sure it doesn't overflow, just enough to fill that up. Now in real life, you're going to want to let this sit for about 5 minutes, but we don't have that kind of time, so we're just going to fast forward. So after 5 minutes, you are going to very carefully remove the rubber band from the top of your jar. Pack this up, crumple it up, and throw it in the trash, because all you're going to need is the liquid that's in the jar. You're going to grab your cold rubbing alcohol, and remember that your rubbing alcohol should be cold. It should have been in the freezer for 30 minutes before you start this. And you are going to measure out a half a cup of the cold rubbing alcohol. Be very careful with this. Try not to spill it everywhere, but measure out 1/2 a cup of cold rubbing alcohol into a measuring cup. Very carefully. Maybe put on a face mask because this stuff is stinky. And then pour it very carefully into the jar, trying not to spill anything else. In just a few moments, you're going to start seeing the liquid in the jar completely change. After a little bit, you will begin to see a weird-looking blob on the inside of your jar. Then you're going to take your toothpick or your skewer and try to pull this little blob out of the alcohol mixture. And this, my friends, is strawberry DNA. The blob that forms is the stuff that all life is made of, even though, I will be honest with you, it looks kind of like a big booger. But it's not a booger. It is DNA. If you want to know more about DNA and what makes you you, we recommend trying this experiment with other things. What else can you extract DNA from at home? Why not try this experiment with different fruits to see if it works? We recommend starting with some different berries since they're the most similar to strawberries. Also, you can check out these great books and much more through our curbside pickup service. The DNA book, Discovering What Makes You You by DK. DNA, The Secret of Life by James D. Watson. And DNA is You by Beatrice, the biologist. These books and many more are available to pick up at your closest branch through curbside pickup. And while you're reading about DNA, don't forget to use your reading time and count it towards our Fall Into Reading program. You can join on the Read Squared app, which is the same app that we used for our summer reading program. This is the first time we've ever offered a fall reading program, and it's open to readers of all ages. All you've got to do is read for 20 minutes a day to complete, and you'll be eligible to win some great prizes.